All right, we are back on this very special episode of Phoenix Tonight. I'm here with Ann Moses, editor of Tiger Beat magazine from 1966 to 1972. And we have just talked about your early career. Now it's, I'm going to speculate, September 1966 when you get...
That's the month.
When you get a... How did it work when a new band was breaking into the scene, Monkees or anyone? How did you know this is somebody the kids are going to want to know about? I'm going to go interview. I would assume your boss had that sense, but what was that process like?
In the case of the Monkees, it was different with some of the other groups because their publicist would send a photograph. They would say, can we bring them up to the office for an interview if they were kind of breaking into the business.
Would you get photographs and go like, ugly, ugly, cute?
Well, you know, the Q factor was
sure
very important. But with the Monkees, my publisher, Chuck Laufer, had actually seen Davy in Oliver on Broadway.
Wow, okay.
And, you know, he was several years younger at that point in time, and totally remembered him. And it actually, when Chuck Laufer passed away several years ago, it said in his obituary, which was written by his brother, that he immediately put Davy in an early issue of Tiger Beat, the 6th issue. Now I have every issue from the first one on, even though the first issue was September of '65, and
that was the first issue of Tiger Beat.
Yep.
September '65. Okay.
And it was Lloyd Thaxton's Tiger Beat because they felt they needed that tie-in. He had a national half-hour dance show every afternoon.
Okay.
And so they needed that tie-in, but that only lasted a year. So he said that he put him in an early issue of Tiger Beat, but Davy did not appear until he appeared with the Monkees.
Okay.
You know, when they were introduced. And my first introduction to them was I was invited along on the press car of the last train to Clarksville.
Oh, really?
Which was a promotional trip on a Union Pacific train. We went from Union Station in downtown Los Angeles, which is a really neat historic building, and we went down to Del Mar, California, which had been named Clarksville for the day, by the mayor. So we really didn't know what to expect. Now Chuck had seen the pilot. I was, I didn't get to see that, so I really didn't know what we were going to see when we got off the train. So they had some bleachers set up. They played some music, and then very shortly after everyone was settled, we hear this thump, 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 and 4 helicopters fly over, and they land on the beach. So out of each helicopter jumps a monkey in full, in their double-breasted shirts, and it was like, wow, this is, they were different. They didn't try and look like the Beatles. They were something new and different.
And there was this Hollywood production to them.
Totally. And then they got on stage and played. So
their own instruments?
Their own instruments.
For real?
For real.
Just wanted to stare at the internet.
There you go. Good reaction. Because we had to put up with that for a long, long time, and that was their cross to bear, that they weren't a real group. But 50 years later, I think they've
proven it. They've proven they have the chops. They
certainly have.
Yeah.
They certainly have. But the show that day was great. They sang 2 songs, and then we got back on the train. And they played a couple of songs because the cars, it had been a radio station promotion. So there were 2 cars filled with fans. And everybody somehow crowded into the caboose, and they had their instruments set up, and they played like 1 song. And then they made their way through the cars and said hi to all the fans, and then they spent the last hour of the trip in the press car. And that was my first meeting with all 4 of them.
Wow.
So it was, but by the next week, they had already been filming. The next day their show premiered, and from that point on, I was out on the set 3 days a week. And because what my publisher has done is he got the rights to use the Monkees, to certain Monkees, the logo.
Sure.
And that we could have a monthly column, Monkey Talk, and just have entree to the set. So all I ever had to do was just call up, Marilyn Schlossberg, who was their unit publicist on the show, and she'd leave my name at the gate, and there I was on the Monkees set.
Wow! And what was the sense? What was the feeling like on the set? I know the guys, from what I understand, were often cooped up while the TV crew tried to do as much of the real TV production as they could. And then when the time came to roll, they would say, all right, here they come, and then let the guys out, and they would half improv, half perform the script that was written. And so you experienced that firsthand, basically.
Absolutely. The times I was out on the set, they were usually hanging out. They weren't hiding out in their dressing room, or, they were hanging out sitting around. They would often have friends that they would invite. It was basically a closed set, in other words, by invitation only. But they often would bring their friends on the set. I mean, they were young, teenagers or just getting out of their teens.
Right.
They wanted their friends to come and see what they were doing. And I mean, it was as new to them as it was to, everybody who was working on the show.
Sure.
But what you said about improv is absolutely accurate. They, the director that I was introduced to very early on, and who did many of their shows.
Frawley? James Frawley?
Jim Frawley. And he just had a knack for letting them know what he was looking for. Then they would follow the script, but then they would do their own thing. And sometimes he'd have to cut it off and say, you've gone off the deep end.
Sure.
But a lot of times, the part that they would improvise just enhanced what the Monkees TV show became.
Sure.
Because it couldn't all be in the script. It came from them and their the way they got along, the way they interacted with one another. And so they, as the four, stars of the show, really contributed more than just their acting skills.
Sure, they were writing then by proxy of the improv performance, and Mickey directed an episode, at least one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So they, it was amazing to watch, because it was the first TV set I was ever on. So there I am, pretty gaga over the whole experience.
Sure.
But then as it became more routine, it was never less exciting because of all the activity that was going on. Maybe it was their interactions with the guest star, whether I'm trying to think of the tall woman that Davy.
Julie Newmar.
Julie Newmar, for example. Yeah, that was the perfect example.
Sure.
Because so when the cameras, when the director yelled cut, they would continue to just, do funny things.
Sure. Oh, Davy. Yeah, you could have seen, or maybe you did see Rosemarie, Julie Newmar.
Julie Newmar, I was on the set when that was filmed. I can remember. When I watch the shows, I can go, oh, I was there for that scene of that show, and that's what I might spend the whole day, and they might film two scenes.
I saw a picture in Andrew Sandoval's book just a few days ago, the Monkees Day by Day.
Yes.
Of Sammy Davis Jr. on the set.
Yeah.
Do you remember that at all?
I wasn't there then. But I'm trying to think of what month. I can't think of the month. But in '66, I was doing freelance articles for a British music newspaper called the New Musical Express, and that was a weekly music newspaper. And so I would send stories to them, but then I started writing a monthly column for them called America Calling. And so what would happen is when the British stars would come over, they would kind of contact me because they would want me to report back to the UK what they were doing in Hollywood and what big stars they were. And then they would say, can you get me on the Monkees set? So here I am taking, Jimmy Page, then with the Yardbirds, out to the Monkees set.
Jeez,
and
wow.
that's one of my favorite pictures for sure.
Absolutely.
Jimmy Page and Mickey, and Peter's got my head in a headlock. And so that's one of my all-time favorites. It's the same thing, Dave Clark, one time when they came back to Hollywood, he said, I'd really like to go on the Monkees set. So he spent the entire day. And so then I would write it up as a story. Obviously, it was an exclusive.
Sure.
So that was nice. But these people they wanted to see this phenomenon that was going on.
So the Monkees phenomenon, as you describe it, probably hit pop culture in three tiers. There were the fans that absolutely adored them. There were their musical peers who seemed very intrigued and probably liked the guys personally when they met them. But then there was this harsh criticism that the band was manufactured, they didn't play their own instruments, etc. And did you feel that kind of conflicting energy on the set or among the guys, that they really had something to prove to the industry?
That was not something they expressed to me.
Okay.
I'm sure, I did go to some recording sessions, but I'm sure when they were making their music, and at first they were only doing vocals on the album tracks, but as time went on, they would play their own instruments, and there was just a general awareness that all this trash talk was going on, and we at Tiger Beat didn't have time to worry about it. We had fans that wanted to know, when are the Monkees coming to my town? What kind of girl does Davey want to marry? Is so, what, they wanted to know what's it like for the monkey, Mike, that's married.
Sure.
And he has this little boy named Christian. Tell us about his life.
Sure.
And when he builds a house in the Bel Air, we show them his house. That's what they were worried about. They did not need convincing. They could have cared less. It was kind of, I think, the music snobs that said, well, gee, if you aren't as multi-talented as the Beatles, then you're not really real.
Sure.
And they were sure real to their fans and
still are, obviously.
Exactly.
Mickey called those snobs he calls them the hippoisie. So I hang my hat on that phrase as far as.
I'd say that's a good way to put it.
Now, even as a young fan in the 80s, I recognized that between seasons 1 and 2 of the Monkees, there was a visual change among the guys and the tone of the series. Davey got a haircut, Mickey didn't. Mike stopped wearing the green hat. Peter looked very much more bohemian. Did you get that sense when they came back from their first tour and started doing the second season that things are changing? This could be the beginning of the end of the Monkees as we know them, this bubblegum style, and they're going more in their own separate creative directions. Do you remember that at all or recall?
Well, I certainly remember it.
Sure.
But being so close to it, it seemed like a natural progression for them. If anything, Peter moved into what the person he was and what he was acting like in his on-screen hours, like he would at home.
Sure.
And and Mickey, we would run articles. Okay, Mickey's hair, and it would be 3 pages of pictures and every one would be a different style. I think they were just throwing stuff at the wall and see which one was the favorite.
Sure.
So when you say Mickey's hair was different, it's like it was constantly different.
That's true.
And Mike, I guess I didn't realize that he stopped wearing the green hat.
It might have popped up from time to time, but it definitely wasn't as frequent, nor was it as needed, because in those early episodes it might have been a distinguished, that's Mike, distinguished them.
Right. And Davey cutting his hair, they probably just wanted us to see more of that cute face. I'm thinking somebody said, let's cut Davey's hair so you can see more of his darling little face.
Do you remember when the movie Head came out, or at least how quickly it came and went and all that?
Yes.
Need we say more, or?
You know, I was not a fan of the movie, and I mean, I've put that in print, so it's no, you know, it was what surprised me is the writers. I mean, you know, Jack Nicholson, and I mean, and the collaboration. I guess they had a real good time writing it.
Sure.
But you know, their work that came out of those very cloudy sessions was just, I think it was very strange. And
Mickey says he has all of that recorded at home somewhere.
Oh, well, I mean, that would probably be more fascinating than the movie. But
Probably.
That's personal taste. And by the time Head came out, you know, the show had been canceled. If I'm,
I believe so. Yeah.
I believe so. And then it was like, I mean, I know our readers, they were brokenhearted when the show was canceled, and they wanted anything they could get on them. So if Peter was starting a new band, we'd try and say, okay, Peter's starting a new band, or you know, Davey's going to be on this TV show, or we certainly tried to cover them, but it just wasn't the same when they didn't have that weekly audience of you know, as a means of reaching the fans.
Sure. So there was a definitive time, you would say, when the Monkees were not a part of your regular rotation. Maybe
right.
And they would pop up periodically, maybe like they're going to be on some variety show. But other than that, wow. And that was a very definitive, like, we're not covering the Monkees anymore.
Well, certainly we kept writing story about, you know, then it became stories about Davey and his wife and his baby, and you know, Mickey got married early on, and then Amy was born, so we were reporting on that. But after the big, you know, once the show was canceled, then we were trying to give the readers, I mean, they didn't stop loving the Monkees.
Sure.
So we had to give them what we could.
Yeah.
So we still covered them and would go out and do interviews and those things, but certainly not the same volume.
It wasn't that intensity.
Right.
Okay, well,
and they weren't taking up as many pages in Tiger Beat.
Mickey's hair still could have filled a 2-page spread, but that's a different story entirely. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Anne's life post-Monkees and her opinions on the way entertainment and music is covered today by the media. So click on the next Phoenix Tonight Presents an Evening with Ann Moses clip, if you'd please. Ann Moses, everybody, here at Jarrod's Coffee, Tea and Gallery in Mesa.